Girl, you the baby, and she love me when I'm in it, and she never be pretending, nothing that's friend. She gon' tell you what she bought it, cause she know you can't afford it. Know you can get it, looking exquisite, no competition.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Eat Spot with Camille. I am your host, Camille Cower, and I am beyond excited. Like, you guys don't even know how excited I am, but I'm super excited to have the one and only Marcellas Reynolds. He is a TV host, a writer, an actor, fashion stylist. He is all of the above, and I'm so excited to have him. If you are a fashionista, you have seen him on TV, you've seen him on red carpets, you've seen him everywhere. And if you're a reality nut, like a lot of my friends and myself, okay, I'll be honest, you saw him in Big Brother. So without further ado, I cannot wait to introduce you to the one and only. Well, I'm not introducing, you've already met him before, but now we get to see him live and in color and ask him questions ourselves. I cannot wait. Please welcome my guest, Marcellas Reynolds. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being my guest today. I am like already sweating out of nerves and just excitement because
I'm sweating because my air conditioner in this apartment is so loud. So when I put it on, you like hear it. So I have to turn it on. So I've had the apartment like an icebox all day so that it would cool down for this interview. And now, like, of course, I'm like going to be animated. My hands are going to be moving. So if I start shining, bear with me. It's because the apartment
is just glistening. You're just glistening, right? So I have to start off like, so how did you get started in fashion? Like, what drew you to it? Because I've read your story. I just want to hear it from you. Just how did you get started?
Well, in the biggest sense, I guess I would say that fashion saved my life as the little Black gay kid growing up, you know, who was like fastidious about how he was dressed, didn't want to get dirty. So I was like standing back while everybody was playing because I was like, not my good outfit, you know what I mean? And from like, you know, most little kids, your mother like put your outfit together and I would be like, I got this. Go get yourself together and then come back and show me what you're wearing and I'll fix that. Like I knew exactly what I wanted to wear from a very early age. And I think some people are just born like that. And, you know, I say fashion saved my life because I was the kid that was bullied and chased home and beaten up by like gangs of other kids because I was like the neighborhood gay kid. And I had this crazy sort of other life where it's like, you don't have any friends, you can't really trust anybody, so you trust your family. And I would get home every day and I would watch television. And my grandmother would get home. I'd get home between like 3 and 3. I'd get home between like, let's say 3. The sweet spot was like 3:15. So I would watch the end of Ryan's Hope, which was a soap opera with my grandmother. And then I would watch the 3:30 movie on WLS ABC Channel 7. And it was always these crazy sort of fashion-y movies like Mahogany. Or there was a great Italian thriller, Princess Dracula. But it was so fashion because the woman was like old and ugly and wore these dark clothes. But once she bathed in the blood of young girls, she became beautiful. And then her outfits became like white and ethereal. And I saw that stuff. And then I would read because I was also the smart kid. So I would read like Ebony and I would read Essence and I would read Jet. And those magazines gave me a space to dream. You know what I mean? I'd see images of really beautiful Black women like on a boat, or I'd see like white debutantes in their white dresses with their white gloves. Or I'd see like, there's a cover of Ebony with Sammy Davis Jr. on it. And he's standing in front of his house in like California and he's got on a blazer. And it's like a brown blazer. He's got on brown, like dark brown pants. He's got on like those big kind of 70s glasses. And he's standing in a big car and in front of his mansion. And I remember thinking, one day I'm going to wear a blazer. One day I'm going to live in California. One day I'm going to be him. So that was where fashion and those important positive images started giving a boy that felt hopeless in his real life a place to dream outside of his life. And so Ebony and Essence will always be very important to me. And Jet too, because those were the first places where I saw Black doctors, Black policemen, not just Black basketball players and Black entertainers, but the sort of wide birth of what Black and what human is. You know what I mean? And it gave
Oh
me
no, I loved
all of
looking
these
at those
things.
magazines. I
And
think
that was
the Beauty of the Week, or they would
yes,
have the Essence fashion show, or not Essence, excuse me, Ebony fashion
yes,
show.
fashion fair,
All of that, yeah.
absolutely. And you know, when you're little like that and you're sort of experiencing like trauma, you look for beautiful things everywhere. So I loved Iman. You know what I mean? Like when I would see
The
pictures
queen.
of Iman, or I would see a picture of a fashion shoot, I'd be like, what's a yacht? Like where's Italy? You know what I mean? And I'd get my grandmother's encyclopedia if I didn't know something, and I'd cross-reference it. And I'd be like, Rome is in Italy. People that live in Italy speak Italian. You know what I mean? And it just
Yeah.
opened me up like that. It gave me something to focus on other than like being bullied and not being happy and not being treated very well by the other people around me. And then, you know, I got a job as soon as I could get a job because I loved clothes.
Okay.
And I was 15, but I lied. I was supposed to be 16, and I lied and said I was 15. I lied and said I was 16. I got my first job working in a women's clothing store. And that was when I really learned, because I lived on the South Side in Chicago, and Chicago is really racially polarized. It's like Black people on the South Side, Asian people live in one area, white people live on the North Side. And when I started going to like Michigan Avenue, when I worked downtown, it was like I saw people of all races. And then being this little sort of gay kid in high school, it was this lesson in like, there's a whole other world outside of the South Side. And unfortunately, especially in this political time, I say my homosexuality was an asset outside of the Black community. For
We
the
were
first time,
embraced and
sort of
yeah.
embraced, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't bad to be gay. Wasn't bad to care about your clothes. It wasn't bad to like care about, you know, people thought I had an opinion that mattered. And I started as a stock boy and became like a salesperson. And I ended up the number 2 salesperson in a company of 300 stores. And I was in high school. I was
That's
literally
amazing.
a sophomore in high school making more money than my mother, who was a nurse. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
fashion gave me a whole other view of how I viewed myself. You know, and that's where the love started. Fashion taught me how to love myself, because my community didn't teach me how to love myself. My mother taught me how to love myself because she thought, you know, because she had me, she thought I was amazing. And my grandmother thought I was like, I walked on water, you know,
Oh,
the
that's
firstborn
amazing.
grandson, you know what I mean? She was like, and he's smart. Like she was like, you know, so I had the love, but I had to learn to respect myself in a weird way. And fashion gave me that. And it continues to give me that every day, even though there's crazy aspects to it. You know, fashion, I always think, is a microcosm for what's happening in the bigger world, you know. So when you don't see, for years, you didn't see Black models, you know. And then when you did see Black models in the 40s, they were light skinned, almost white. You know, so it touched on colorism in the Black community, something that a stain we carry from, you know, from slavery. And then as things changed over the years and the decades, fashion changed with it. And I think fashion is a precursor for that. You know, it's almost this change agent that it happens in fashion first and then it happens other places.
Absolutely. Because just thinking of, well, I got to bring up your book because that's why I'm dressed the way I do. Because I'm sure people are like, why is she wearing gold? I had to for the book. I was trying to coordinate. You know what I'm saying?
Baby.
And I was like, it's so disco 70s as well, because it's like Whitting Davis, old. But
lovely though, amazing.
I'm very grateful. Thank you, Mom, again for giving me this, because this is originally hers from the 70s, and I took it with me when I moved to LA. And yeah, but you spoke in this book about so many different things, so many different decades. And
Let's say the title.
Supreme.
Iconic Black women who revolutionized fashion. It's the first ever art book devoted to Black models. And that's really important because it's the first ever art book. My book is a photography book, but there are books out there that are before mine that were devoted to the same story. There's a wonderful book called Skin Deep by a model named Barbara Sumners, who was a model in the 70s with Ford.
Okay.
And she did a book that was more like a novel that sort of traced the history of Black models. And there's some photos in it, but it's not, 256 pages, and it's not over 100 photos from the top photographers ever.
What are the odds I open it up right to my... I mean, I did kind of put a post-it in it, but still, a lot of these pages, I mean, it's just absolutely stunning, beautiful pictures. But then you also did like some interviews with them. So they're sharing their amazing stories, how they were able, in the timelines, like just like really seeing it in writing,
Camille,
how long it took for Prada to have their first
Black model
and it took,
campaign, or to open a Prada show. So a really beautiful byproduct of the book, and something that I didn't set out to do, is that the book is like a timeline of the triumphs and trials of the Black model in the United States, really the world, because we start everything. And so it starts in the 40s with Ebony and the creation of Ebony, because that when the Johnson family started Ebony magazine, that gave us a reason for Black models. And Ebony magazine is literally the answer to Life magazine, because historic magazine, Life magazine, wasn't covering Black people as they were covering white people. So John H. Johnson was like, let me do something for us. You know what I mean? And he started Ebony magazine, and we needed Black models to like show the clothes. And that's where the beginning of the story of Black models starts. And then I talk about the trailblazers, like the stars from back then. And so I talk about Dorothea Towles, and I talk about Helen Williams,
and Bethan Hardison,
who was the first dark woman. There's several, but I condensed it down to who I thought were the three most important. And then I sort of move on from there. And then it goes into like the, who I call the godmother, Bethan Hardison, who is such a pivotal person in fashion, period, full stop. And such a pivotal person in Black fashion. She was a model in the Battle of Versailles in 1971. And if you don't know what the Battle of Versailles is.
I watched it again today just from reading this. I was like, oh, this is perfect, because I couldn't decide whether to watch Mahogany or to watch the Battle of Versailles to get prepared for you, because I just wanted to be all fashion. I mean, because everyone was telling me I needed to watch that Michael Jordan movie. I'm like, oh, I'll try it. And so I was like, oh, let me clean my palette with some fashion. Like I lasted 10 minutes. I tried.
Mahogany changed. See, this is bad, but I used to say Mahogany made me gay. Because I'm telling you, the first time I saw Mahogany.
That's how that works, Marcellas, just so you know.
Not how it works.
Because she would have made me gay too. Just saying, that movie is amazing.
That life fight. I mean, in the fountain, if I had to pick one scene from that movie, is when he pushes her in the fountain and she's got the fur muff and she comes up in the water and the hair, and that becomes the Revlon ad. It is like
okay, so like Diana Ross is my goddess. When I was a kid, there was some lost in translation, and so I thought you got to pick who you prayed to as far as like what God. And I thought Diana Ross is my goddess, so I prayed to her. I would say at least 5 years. It took until we moved to America that I was like, oh, only Jesus, and like because I grew up overseas, and there was some lost in translation for real and explanations. And so I would pray to her every night. I prayed for her hair. I prayed for her style and grace. And like, because some Americans had sent us her concert video and Lady Sings the Blues and Mahogany. And I would reenact her entire concert on our coffee table for friends. I couldn't sing, but I could lip sync. Like I would be the perfect drag queen. Just putting it out there. But like, I'm obsessed with Diana Ross. I flew to her 75th birthday that she had at the Hollywood Bowl. obsessed. Like
Obsessed.
I get it. So I would be gay right there with you if that worked. Just saying.
An icon. She is literally iconic.
Yeah.
I mean,
she is.
She's
And so talented with singing, acting, and just overall just having that diva-esque quality of just being glamorous and beautiful without the attitude. Like you don't ever hear any negative stories about her.
And then, speaking about Mahogany and about Lady Sings the Blues, so often when we see a singer want to be an actress, they're not that good. But Diana Ross was the deal. You know what I mean? She was able to like sort of transverse these two worlds and do it successfully and give us this sort of positive.
I mean, even The Wiz.
And The Wiz. I mean,
because I saw that, never saw The Wizard of Oz. I've only seen The Wiz.
Okay, listen. I'm sure there are many Black people that are the same.
Okay, I'm like, still, I tried. I didn't know that it went to color, and I was like, I am not watching this black and white movie. So I was like, oh, one day I'll watch it with my daughter, and we missed it because we ended up watching the other one, the other Oz. But we're getting off subject because we were supposed to talk about you. And like, but when you originally decided to write the book, like, how did that process even go? Like, did you get a lot of pushback about it, or they were very accepting at Abrams? Huh? Whoa.
Racism? No.
Tell it. Let's go.
Okay, so in 1995, I got discovered, and that's when my real fashion journey happens. I got discovered by the same woman that discovered Cindy Crawford, and she discovered like Shakara Ladard and Colin Egglesfield and Matt King and the Riker brothers, all these like kind of top models.
No names nobody's ever heard of.
And right.
Wow.
And that was where it was like that was where just everything sort of shifted. And so from 1995 to like 2000, 2001, that's how I made my money. That was my life. I was a model and I lived all over the world and I traveled. And it was like an eye opener, like you can't believe. Mm-hmm. And I loved every aspect of being a model, and I loved every aspect of being fashion, and being in fashion. And it also showed me what real models are really like. We're just like people from all, areas of the world, all aspects of the world, and just trying to figure it out as we go along, because there's no crash course in it. Some girls that start are like 14 years old. They don't know what fork to use. They don't know anything about art. They don't know anything about fashion designers. And so I was that sponge that picked all that stuff up, and I loved it. I loved every aspect. I loved, when I lived in Milan, I was a fit model for Brioni, and they would fit the suit onto me. Yeah. And I loved standing there for hours and talking to the cutters and talking to the designers and talking to the sewers and learning the parts of a suit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I've always loved art. There's the gay boy in me, but I've always loved art, and I've always collected art books. Okay. And books on photography, books on models, books on home design, books on artists, just art books. So my apartment is like literally stacks of art books with teacups on top of them. And I
love it.
In 2011, a book came out called Vogue Model, The Faces of Beauty. It's the British Vogue book. Okay. And so as soon as that bad boy came out, and it was like $100, I like rushed to get it on Amazon. It came like a day later, 2 days later. And as soon as I heard it hit outside my door, I opened it up, tore into the box, started reading it. And I read it from start to finish. And the book only had 2 Black models in it. This book had over 100 models in it, and there were only 2 Black models. It was Iman and it was Naomi Campbell. And it was really a bad photo of Iman. And you got to work to find a bad photo.
That's what I was going to say. How did they find a bad photo of Iman?
She had like these like braids in her hair. Well, the photo is good because it's like her in a swimsuit. She's pulling a boat. It's a beautiful photo, but it's not a great photo of Iman. So if that makes any sense. So I like had to go back through the book and make sure. Then I checked the table of contents and I was like, this book only has two Black women in it. And Vogue, British Vogue was the first magazine, the first Vogue, not the first magazine, the first Vogue to put a Black woman on its cover in 1966. They put Donielle Luna on the cover in 1966. That's 8 years before American Vogue put Beverly Johnson on the cover. And you didn't even choose to highlight that in a book about your publication? What tomfoolery and fuckery is that? That's tells ridiculous. Me that there was no person of color that helped to edit that book. And then, so if you go on Amazon today and you look up that book, I'm sitting there like at 3 o'clock in the morning, like that Kermit the Frog gift. And I wrote a review of that book and gave it 1 star. I would have gave it 0 stars if I could.
Right.
And I was like, where is Veronica Webb? Where is Leah Kabede? Where's Alec Weck? You know what I mean? Where's Tyra Banks, the model of Mogo? Right. You know, all these girls had appeared in British Vogue over the years, but you only put 2 in. But then there were like mediocre girls that weren't even supers in the book, that didn't even get to the level of the women that I just listed. So honey, right then and there, I was like, I'm writing my own book. And I did my research and I found a bunch of books that models had done. And I found a bunch of books that I'd owned that were about models as a group. And again, they may have had 3, they may have had 4 models in them of color. And I was like, is there a book here? And I did my research, and after that night, I always have like those old school legal pads. The legal pads are also
the yellow ones, right?
I also have the old school notebook that's black and white, that weird black and white print on the front, the scholastic.
The composition books.
Composition book. And I had my pencil out, and off the top of my head, I was like, let me see how many models I can come up with of color. And literally off the top of my head, I had like a list of 70. And I was like, there's enough Black models that have made an impact on fashion that we could do a book just about them. And that was where I came up with God gave me that morning at 3 o'clock out of frustration, out of anger. And that's where I came from. That's how I came up with the idea for this book. And it took 8 years for it to happen. It was at 2 other publishers who both passed on it, who at first seemed interested and then passed on it. And then all the stars aligned in 2018. I lost my job. I lost my income. God was like, you've been fucking around for 8 years, so I'm gonna have to take everything. Excuse my language.
You're fine. It's Facebook. Let's go. Be as casual as you are. Yeah.
God was like, I'm gonna take everything from you that you think defines you, and leave you with one thing to focus on. And that one thing was this book. And so I turned my attention to it. I did the work. I found an amazing literary agent on Facebook. And then from her, who was like a white, like 25, 26-year-old woman, she believed in me. She believed in the project. She saw the importance of it. She was Dapper Dan's literary agent. So she had sort of cornered the market on Black style guys.
She knew your language already.
And she was like, I got you. And she was like, we're gonna sell this book. And there was a bidding war for the book when it went to auction. And it landed at Abrams, and I couldn't be happier because I own a bunch of Abrams books. And then it took over a year to write. It was double what it was supposed to cost because I had to pay to license all the photos. So I had to buy, I had to pay photo editors, and there was like the book cost over $70,000. It was supposed to be like $35,000, but I could not short step on these images. I mean, that's Veronica Webb from Italian Vogue. It's like every photo, every Iman with the new Iman on the cover of Vogue Arabia. It's like every page you like sort of open to Karen Alexander on the cover of Essence. You know, it's like every page you open, Naomi Campbell, people. You know, it's like every page you open is like a feast for the eyes.
Just
and
amazing.
I had to give it that reverence. And I'm telling you, I'm still paying off the $70,000 that it cost to license these photos. It decimated my credit, which was almost perfect because I had to live. I wasn't working, and I had to live off of my savings. And when my savings were done, I had to live off of the advance, which was nothing because this was a first-time author, a brand new book, a book about Black women. They didn't. They thought it would. They saw the worth of it, but they didn't think it was going to sell by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, because we don't read, right?
You know, so right. Exactly.
But it's all pictures. And I'm kidding.
Right. I get emotional thinking about that moment. And, you know, sometimes I you know, when the credit card bills still roll in, I think, was that worth it? But then the response to it has been so overwhelming where Black women will send me photos and they're reading and they're showing the kids the picture and they're reading the stories of the Black models told in their own voices. And people send me these wonderful notes every day telling me that this is the book they wish they had when they grew up. And they tell me that this is, and the models in the book tell me amazing things that they're so honored.
They're being centered too. You know, they're not the girlfriend. They're not the side. They're the main attraction. And
this is their legacy, because it's my legacy, because I wrote it, I put it together, and it'll be here after I'm gone, but it's also their legacy. It'll be here after they're gone. And I think that that's what storytellers do. And I'm so happy that it played out.
Couldn't be a better person to do it either, because you know it from a model side. You've worked with these women. You've seen the struggles they've gone through, and you've been there as well. Like, you've been in front of the camera, behind the camera. So you know exactly what people need to see that inspiration, to be able to maybe follow in the same footsteps like you did, like you were saying earlier about being able to see it, and that made you want to achieve it. It's the same thing that you're giving some other little boy, little girl, that inspiration, or even someone older, just like, you know, we're capable of so much, and look at all that these women have done.
You know, you grow up in America and you think, you're told constantly what your limitations are, you know, and then you're told you can't do something. And then you're told that even if you do something, you're not going to do it as well as white people or other people. And so that is something we all have to constantly overcome. We're all battling against that
gotta be twice as good
in our head, that negative soundtrack. And even after I had sold the book, even after I was supposed to be writing it, I kept saying, am I the person that should do this? I kept saying it to my literary agent. I kept saying it to my editor. And they were like, get over that and get it done, because I need 10 pages by like tomorrow morning. And
it's like, and who else would do it? I can't think of anybody else that could do what you did.
The crazy thing, though, is that I thought that I was like battling myself, because the whole time I came up with this idea, I was like, somebody else is going to have that idea, and somebody
they did
better than me is going to do it.
Yeah, and I have the magazine over here, the Italian Vogue, the Black issue. That's the closest thing. And that was, and it was like 20 pages.
I thought that Edward Enfield would do the book. So I was scared to find out if, oh my God, Cecily Lopez on the cover of the Black Italian Vogue.
And just to flip through, just so people who didn't buy it in 2008, it's not that many. Like, there's some, but
it's crazy.
Like, now I'm getting to all of them, but like, it's not, the whole issue is not Black.
Right.
Supposedly
it's every model in it is Black except for the advertising.
Yeah.
Stephen Meisel shot the bulk of it. It's a beautiful book. It's so funny because I wanted so many of those photos because that was such an iconic moment, and that Vogue sold out like 4 times. And Stephen Meisel's pictures, the licensing fees were like $2,500 a photo, which was crazy. there's over 100 photos in this book. And so I couldn't get any Stephen Meisel, and I was devastated because I worship at his throne. The stuff that he did with Linda, Christy, and Naomi in the late 80s into the mid 90s is just epic. Like the most beautiful fashion photos ever taken. And so I'm gonna tell you a little story about
please do.
Models. So Naomi was supposed to write the foreword. And I had been trying to get in touch with her, and I had gotten in touch with her through Christy Turlington because I know Christy from having been a model in the late 90s.
Okay.
So Christy wrote the foreword. No, Christy wrote an essay about Naomi and about diversity and inclusion. And for those of you that don't know, Christy is half Latino. She's Ecuadorian. Her mother's from Ecuador. And so she has a personal take on the need for diversity and inclusion in fashion. And little Latin girls seeing other Latin women on the runways and in movies and in advertising. So she writes a beautiful essay about that and about her friendship with Naomi. And so Christy, being Christy, she reached out to Naomi and she was like, look, I'm writing this essay for this book by Marcellas Reynolds. You should know about this book and you should do something for it. And Naomi was like, I haven't heard of it. But for years, I thought I was talking to Naomi. I was talking to her PR company, and her PR company didn't even tell her about it.
Oh, no.
So
see, you gotta be careful about your team.
You gotta be careful about your team. Because as it turned out, she had left them. So I'm still emailing them when they had been saying, oh, we're gonna get it to her. Oh, it's going, blah, blah, blah. Then she left them and went to somebody else. So now it's really in the dust. Now it's really like not happening. Yeah. And so when Christy told her about the book, Naomi's agents reached out to me at DNA, and her current PR company reached out to me because Christy gave them my information. And Naomi was like, sorry, in her British accent, sorry, I don't know what this is. Tell me about it. And I was like, oh my God. So anyway, she was supposed to write the foreword, and she was so busy because she has not ever stopped.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Got the shows and everything, yeah.
Everything. Like the day I was supposed to talk to her, she was breaking the internet doing Valentino in that black dress that was like see-through. So she ended up not writing the foreword, but Veronica Webb had wrote what was supposed to be the preface. And her preface was really beautiful because Veronica is a writer. And so we just had her flesh it out a little more, and Veronica's preface became my foreword, and Naomi wrote the back cover quote for me. So Naomi is in the book.
Yeah.
So, okay, so here's the crazy Naomi story, and there's so many of them. So I sent Naomi her layouts. When I sent her the layouts so that she could do the book, I wanted her to see the book. So I sent her the layout of the book, and specifically her layout. So she comes back to me and she's like, I don't want that picture by a photographer I'm not going to say. I would like a Stephen Meisel photo. And by that time, I had paid for not paid for but I had paid for all the photos. I had used my credit card and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I was like, I would like a Stephen Meisel photo too, but I can't afford it. I don't have any money. And Naomi was like, well, I don't care what you do, but I don't want that photo in my section. Now I'm like, shit. So I'm in this fight with Abrams because I'm like, well, she can't control the narrative. And they're like, well, you want her on your side. And then I was like, well, let's take it out and let's put another quote in, because she saw that there's all these quotes in the book. Where's my camera? That are important to the book, that are, that are the message. The big quotes throughout the book are the message of the book that I want the reader to walk away with. So I was like, let's put in another quote. And the publisher was like, no, you need another photo. So then they were like, well, send her photos by Demarche Ye, send her photos by Gilles Ben-Simon, send her photos by Peter Lindbergh. And I was like, pause. When Naomi says she wants something, she wants what she wants. So either she wants a Meisel photo or she wants a quote. Let's move on. And they were like, no, it throws off the book. So long story short, my literary agent again steps in and she's like, send Stephen Meisel a note and tell him about the book and show him the book and ask him if he'll donate a photo to the book. And I was like, he's not going to do that. I already talked to his people. His photos are $2,500. And she was like, look, I'm trying to help you come up with an answer because the book is like 2 weeks past due. with the publisher, with the printer. So I was like, fine. So I send a note. A week later, Abrams is like, what are we doing with the photo? The book is like now like a month late. And so I was like, well, let me call Stephen's team, his licensing agent. And the guy was like, oh, I didn't get back to you. And I was like, did you know you didn't? That's why
in my history? Yeah.
I was like, that's why I'm reaching out to you. And he was like, okay. He was like, I'll send you an email. So I hang up the phone. I was coming from the gym and I was like exhausted. I was standing in front of the donut store by my house because I was like, I'm about to go up in here because the donut place by me has like $3.99 a dozen donuts on like Wednesday. And I was like, am I about to walk up in here after my good hard workout where I almost died and I had to walk 2 miles home to get an extra workout and then buy?
Sounds like you're gonna work it off.
Right? I was like, I'm about to get a dozen donuts. And my phone buzzed to tell me I had an email. It's a beautiful note from Stephen Meisel. And he's like, so I heard about the book. It's really beautiful. Congratulations. It's much needed. And he's like, I heard this is your favorite photo of Naomi. And he's like, here it is, high res. Please use it however you like. And send me a copy of the book. And this beautiful photo here, black and white, of Naomi Campbell from Vogue Italia, 1998. And she's wearing Rifat Ozbek. That's the photo he gave me. And that's my absolute favorite fashion photo ever. It's Naomi at the height of her Naomi-ness. And then I love Rifat Ozbek, the designer. And it was the last photo that we cleared for the book. He gave it to me for free. It filled a hole in the book of Stephen Meisel because he's the most famous fashion photographer in my opinion. And it gave Naomi what she wanted.
And the queen always gets what the queen wants.
The queen gets what the queen wants.
As far as I'm concerned. It's Diana, Naomi, Iman. Trying to think. I don't even know who would be. I mean, I know you're very close to Tyra, but she can be kind of problematic sometimes. So she fluctuates on my list.
Oh, Tyra's not even on my list. My list is I mean, are we just talking about models? Or are we talking about actresses? Or are we talking about Black women?
I'll let you decide because I just want to hear what your list would be.
Okay, so my model list is Naomi, a Black model, Naomi Sims, who was the first Black model on the cover of Life magazine and on the cover of Ladies Home Journal, which was so amazing. Are you gonna get them? Are you gonna get them as
I have her. I think I tagged that one. No, it's Bethan Hardison I tagged.
So I'll go to the S. We'll find Naomi Sims. So it's Naomi, then Naomi Sims, then Karen Alexander. Because Karen Alexander to me is like the perfect model and human. Because she's so beautiful, she's so wonderful,
and like commercial, she did it all.
She did it all, and she just looked so regal and beautiful doing it. Then Joan Smalls, who I think you look like.
I took a selfie with her Estee Lauder thing because somebody said that to me when I was near Estee Lauder one day. I'm like, you just made my day. I don't ever have to wear makeup again. And to hear that from you.
That's the Life magazine cover of
Naomi
Sims. I mean, Naomi Sims is everything. And I had the nerve.
She did the makeup. She had her own makeup line too, Naomi Sims, right?
No, she had her own wig line.
Oh, wigs. Okay.
She was one of the first Black models to monetize her personality, to monetize her brand.
Okay.
So she, not only was she probably the top Black model during that period, she steps away from modeling and decides to create her own line of wigs. And let me tell you how she did that. She was wearing white people wigs and the hair texture was off. So one day she decided to put a white person's wig in the oven and bake it. And that's how she got the texture of the wig right. And that's how a multi-million-dollar wig company was born.
Get it. And clearly everybody has been following her protocol as far as like making wigs or monetizing
Right.
themselves afterwards. I'm kind of surprised Naomi Campbell hasn't come up with something.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing about Naomi. Naomi does have several fragrances, and her fragrances don't sell as well in the United States as they do all over the world.
Okay.
That's why we don't know about the millions she's made as a fragrance model. It's the same with Paris Hilton. It's like ain't no American buying a Paris Hilton fragrance, but if you go outside of America, Paris Hilton's got like a whole. She's got like a condo building. She's got like a hair care line. She's got clip-ins.
Skincare, yeah.
Curling irons, and she's got like a ton of fragrances, and she makes millions off of that. Not that she doesn't already have millions from her family. I'm friends with Paris, so I know her business.
Oh, I used to be her esthetician when she went to Kate Somerville's.
Yes. Okay. So should we answer questions, or do you want to ask me more questions? What do you
Well,
want to
I do have some more questions for you because you also did reality TV. You also did talk. You're a talk show host. So I'm curious a little bit about the Big Brother. Well, no, back up. Actually, I want to ask you something about fashion and the way things are going right now with people calling them out, wanting them to pull up, so to speak, more inclusion. What do you think needs to be done for fashion to be like America, as far as being more diverse, more accepting of all women of color being considered beautiful and on the covers and appreciated and celebrated?
diversity
Behind
and
the camera
inclusion,
and in front.
diversity and inclusion has always been a problem in fashion. It really has. However, it's also been at the forefront of every conversation. So we have made leaps and bounds since even when I started in 1995 as a model, and then in 2000 I became a stylist. Like the conversation has sort of stayed the same, but it's actually I've seen it explode. So there are more jobs for Black models. Black models are used in a different way instead of it being like a stunt or one of. But we still have a really long way to go. And we're seeing that now explode exponentially because it's like the natural hair movement has changed the way that fashion responds to Black hair. You no longer have to have straight hair. You no longer have to have a weave if you're a Black girl. There's still a space for you to have natural hair. And what's most important in that space is we're now calling fashion out. And we're saying we need more Black people behind the scenes. We need more Latin people behind the scenes. We need more Asian people behind the scenes. We need more people of color in every area of fashion, not just in front of the camera. We need more Black hair and makeup people. And that's real because my entire career, I have seen Black models be told by hair and makeup artists that are paid to do everyone that they can't do their hair. They don't have makeup for them. How do you come to work not knowing how to do your job? And how is that okay? Because it's not the makeup artist that gets sent home, it's the model that gets sent home. So you're actually telling the model there's something wrong with her skin and something wrong with her hair because you don't know how to do your job. You don't have the skills to do your job correctly. So now we're calling those people out and we're saying, look, if those people don't want to go back and learn their skills 110%, get rid of them and bring somebody in. Because let me tell you this, a Black hair and makeup artist needs to know how to do white hair and makeup.
Yep. From alabaster to the darkest ebony, you have to know all of it.
You need to know all of it. So she could never stand on set and say, I don't know how to do white hair and makeup. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard that on sets from white hair and makeup artists. And it's repeat offenders. So you sit in the seat of your power and you don't even try to self-educate to do your job better. And you know that you're going to get away with it because the companies allow it. Yeah. Now let's talk about the fact that there needs to be more Black stylists. There needs to be more Black art directors. There needs to be more Black photographers. You know, I did this book and there's over 100 photos in here. And there's probably 60 photographers. The number of Black photographers in the book. Do you know how hard it was to find Black photographers at this level?
I can only imagine. I do commercial modeling and I've never had a Black photographer.
Right?
Never.
I would work when I was a model and even as a stylist, I would work with Black photographers doing tests.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But when you walked on I had this run from like late 96 into 98 where I was like almost a star. And I was working with Bruce Weber and Norman Jean Roy and all these like amazing, like Darlene, all these amazing photographers. But I was also working for amazing brands. And I would literally walk into the room and there would be 100 people, 20 plus people, 100 people on some sets buzzing about. And I can't tell you how many times I was the only Black person there. Or it was like me and another Black girl were the only Black people there. And that Black girl was like fair skinned and had quote unquote good hair. Mm-hmm. And not that much has changed because from 2002, I became like a full-time straight up stylist. And that was when I would walk in the building of like Macy's, H&M. I don't want to call a bunch of companies out for whatever.
Well, H&M's been called out before because the whole monkey shirt.
Right. But I would walk in and I would be the only Black person in the building, period. Behind the scenes, like the editors, the art directors, the receptionists at the desk, like everywhere, I would walk into the building. And if there were no Black models scheduled to work that day, I would be the only Black person there. But what that means on a grander scheme is that I'm the only Black person that that could possibly say something. And as a freelance stylist, I can't say anything. I don't have that power. And if I choose to wield some power, then I'm the agitator. You know, then I'm the one that's like, oh, everything's Black with the Black person.
Yep, using his Black card.
Exactly. If there had been a Black stylist on the set the day that the H&M t-shirt thing, the coolest monkey in the jungle, I don't have a problem with that shirt. But when you put it on a Black child, it becomes something else. So as a stylist, I would have been like, no, let's put that t-shirt on a white boy and let's put the Black kid in a different t-shirt. Mm-hmm. Bang.
Never would have been a problem.
Never would have been a problem. Mm-hmm. Never would have been a problem. Then if a Black person chose to buy the t-shirt, that's on them.
But and here's the thing, the narrative would have been, oh, well, we shouldn't use Black models because it's problematic because they can't wear certain things without it being misinterpreted. So we might as well just stick with white models because then we don't have to worry about. You're missing the point.
Yeah. Over your head. So yes, we need to talk about diversity and inclusion, but Bethan Hardison said something when we did the Tamron Hall show that I found really impactful. She said, now the conversation has to turn to integration. It can't just be constantly about diversity and inclusion because we're there in a way, but now we need to talk about integration. We need Black people at every level of fashion. Why aren't there any Black designers? You know what I mean? Like we've got Virgil and we've got Kushney, we've got but there's there's thousands of white designers, but where are the Black designers? Where are the Black art directors? Where are the Black photographers? Where are the Black people that work at the design firms? Where are the Black marketing directors? Where are where are they? Because if we're there and something that's problematic comes up, like the H&M t-shirt or the Prada blackface sweater, we can at least say, hey, pump the brakes on this. We can do that Prada sweater in every color combination known to mankind except Black with red lips. And this is why. You know what I mean? And that's where we need to talk about integration. We need to be there at the tables making the decisions because we're not.
It's funny that you mentioned that because yesterday I had on Denise Caldwell, who worked for Harper Bazaar for 7 years, and she was saying it was just her and the lady in accounts receivables. And, it's just thinking about that, like as far as making sure there is that integration, I would say they need to start doing more internships or at least recruiting from HBCUs or just really putting out that opportunity so people know that there's a pipeline way in to get into fashion, because a lot of the kids don't know. They assume, oh, well, I don't have that body shape, I don't have this, or I don't live near New York, I don't know those right connections to get that opportunity. So I really think they need to reach out
they
make
watch
sure.
The Devil Wears Prada, and sort of the only ethnic person in the room is Giselle Bundchen. You know what I mean?
And they're like, does she really count? She's very white passing Brazilian.
You know, it's
I mean,
like,
married to Tom Brady.
where are we? Like, I even say one of the things about the book is like I wanted to maybe do panels with high school kids, with me and a bunch of people that work in fashion, because you want these people, children of color, not just Black but Latino, Asian, everybody, to know that there are jobs there. I have Black friends who work in, you know, when I was at the height of my stylist career, I was pulling down 6 figures just being a stylist. Not add in my hosting career, not even add in the side hustles I had, the, you know, influencers.
And you had a lot. Your demo reel is amazing. I was like, wait, when did this reality dating show come out? I don't even remember this. The one with Whitley, where you're on a gondola.
The gondola with Wendell.
Yeah.
That makes me so sad because I really liked Wendell, but it wasn't a love connection. But he's like one of the greatest people I've ever met, and so whenever I see that, I'm like, oh, Wendell, and then I'm like, what's wrong with me that I didn't like Wendell? You know what I mean? But then I got attacked for that. Like, people were like, oh, well, you don't date Black men, and I was like, you don't know my life. Like, you don't know my history. You know, I weren't a love match doesn't mean that I don't like Black men. Like, my past is, I'm like the United Colors of Benetton over here as far as Black men. And I always say that if I ever got married, I was going to marry a Black man because of the shared history. But you can't like legislate who you fall in love with.
I was going to say, I said the same thing, didn't I? Well, I didn't really say who I was going to marry, but I never thought I'd marry a white guy. And here I am, married to a white guy. So
it's so funny.
You really never know.
That you should be able to love who you love. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny that, you know, even when I did an episode of $1 Million Match, was it Million? Yeah, it was $1 Million Matchmaker when it ended up on We. And you know, I went in with the producers and I was like, don't come up in here with all white boys. I need some brothers in this room for the bachelors too. And they were like, okay. And so they went out and found me brothers. And actually I'm going to break the fourth wall. There was this crazy debate about the boy that I really liked, who I would have dated in real life, was Black, but he could pass. So he looked like anything. He looked like he might have been like Cuban or some sort of Latino or maybe Brazilian. The boy that I sort of liked was very Black. And then there was like a dark-skinned brother. And so the debate during who are you going to pick went down to like, we weren't going to pick a white boy. So all the white boys were like out, even though there were a couple of white boys that like, look, out of all 20 of those guys, I would have probably dated all of them because they found some really good looking, very accomplished guys for me to pick from. Yeah. But then it became like this debate about like, well, should we pick the dark-skinned guys? Should we pick the
whole colorism and everything?
Or should we pick the guy that doesn't look like he's Black, but he is Black? And it was this crazy thing. So I ended up picking the guy in the middle who I actually really liked because he was amazing. But it was like, we're sitting here having a conversation on what's supposed to be a reality show about political correctness and about all the things that have nothing to do, especially love, that should have nothing to do with like love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
and I still got clowned after that. It was, that's one thing I learned.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
With the reality show, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And the other thing I want to, okay, so while we're talking that ish, I have ish because I was the very first Black gay guy on reality television to be a member of the cast of a big show.
Right.
You know, the first one was Pedro Zamora, who was Latin, who was on The Real World San Francisco. He had a boyfriend who was Black that turned up on the show in a couple of episodes, but he wasn't a cast member. He was like, you know, on the periphery. But I remember being young-ish and seeing Pedro on television and thinking he was a hero because not only was he Latin and he was gay, so that was closer to me than the other representations of gayness that I had seen. But then he came up with a cute brother that was gay, that was his man. I was like, Paige, I was like, I was like waving like the gay flag and the Latin and the Latino flag. And I was like, so
because they'll show interracial relationships on movies and films, but a lot of times the black man isn't the love interest. Like it'll be, because even like in Tiana or Princess Tiana, like he was from another country. He wasn't like, she was still, you know what I mean? And Princess and the Frog.
Right. Yes, I knew.
Like, yeah, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm talking about like, what's their real name? But or you know, it's usually not the black man is the focus. Because like even with Something New, Sanaa Lathan was with Simon Baker, or different films like that. Like, you know, but Wesley Snipes in Jungle Fever. But yeah, you're right. There's not.
Talk about a problematic role. That's a problematic role. That movie is problematic. But, you know,
thanks a lot, Spike. I have to hear that song every time.
Spike's movies are problematic because they are supposed to be. Right. They're supposed to be a source for discussion. You know, when he puts you in that space. And so you have to look at your own prejudices, or you have to look at your own preconceived notions, and you have to go, okay, why do I feel so strongly about this, the way this is presented as a black person? Why do I feel so strongly about how this is presented as a non-black person? Because, you know, I look at, for some reason, School Days came back recently.
Oh my gosh, that's what I was thinking in my head. The good hair, bad hair.
I remember School Days, and I remember being like, what kind of fuckery is this? Because I was going to go to Howard, and so I wouldn't have pledged. You know, I was accepted into Howard. But I wouldn't have pledged a fraternity first and foremost because I was gay, and they probably wouldn't have let me in the fraternity, you know, to be honest. So there was a lot of stuff that went on, like even like the Tashina Arnold character who was supposed to be this prototype light-skinned girl with good hair, supposedly, when she makes the decision to sleep with the Spike Lee character no matter what, because her man said so, I was like, what is happening here? That wouldn't happen. No woman would allow that to happen to her, but maybe she would. But then again, we're having this conversation about it, you know, 25 years later. That's
like that love scene still bothered me. I'm like, I'm never licking somebody's hair. Like, who does that? Like, that's the part that always stuck out to me. Like, I'm not doing that. That doesn't seem romantic or fun. You remember when she was like licking his parts? I was like,
and I was like, you know what? He probably got wave pomade in it, and
that was back close to Jerry curl time or S curl, you know. So it's like, that's a lot of chemicals you might have on that time.
Chemicals you will have on that.
It's a new meaning for following the drip. Like, no. I was like, and they're acting like, why make her do that? Who's the body double for this? Please let it be her real man, because that's a little weird.
Well, please let it be her real man. Like, please let it be somebody that just needed a check. Because if I was who? No, it wasn't. It's not Tashina Arnold. It's Gina. I can't remember her name. The actress, and we are getting our black card pulled.
Because I'm doing too much. I couldn't pay attention. I don't even know what you're talking about. No kidding.
We can't pull the name of the girl, the actress who played the light skin.
You're right. That's not Tashina Arnold. Because she was in Martin.
Right. She was in Martin with Tashina. Right? Come on, commenters.
Look, I'm going to IMDb. Help me, IMDb. Oh, it's just the pictures. Gina, but that doesn't answer.
And she was married to Dwayne.
Why is it a white girl that comes up when I put in Martin and Gina? Tisha Campbell.
Oh,
that's it.
God.
Tashina Arnold, Tisha Campbell. Yeah. Very close. I mean, they're best friends in real life, so I'm sure they're not offended.
Which I love.
Yeah. Thank you. The answers were in the comments. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Antoinette. Oh man, it's 6:59. Oh, let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions real quick. I know they were. Oh, somebody mentions Diane Carroll also being an icon. Absolutely. Yeah, Dynasty was everything. And then she was in a interracial relationship with Victor. I remember his scar on his lip.
the child was interracial. Troy Bayer's character on Dynasty.
Yes, I worked with her on White Girl, and I just remember like following her around all over the place. And then she created BAPS as well, Troy Bayer.
So beautiful.
Amazing. I love her. Okay. Advocates now created new tables of power and influence, changed the whole infrastructure. Absolutely. And Naomi Campbell even posted a video today about an interview she did in 2013, bringing up this conversation where at different fashion weeks, they didn't have any Black models walking. And it's like the same conversation keeps happening, and it's not going to change as long as the people making the decisions never include us at the table.
You know, fashion is about trends, but skin color is not a trend. And if you're talking about it like skin color is a trend, when do white girls go out then? If Black girls go out of style, when do white girls then, however, not become the trend? So don't talk to me about trends or what's not in this season, because you can't make Black person, you can't make Black skin a trend. You can't make Latin skin a trend. You can't make Asian skin a trend. Skin is not a trend. And you know, I had a conversation with an Asian model the other day, and she was like actually mad. She's a friend of mine. She's beautiful. And she was like, in this conversation about diversity and inclusion, Asian girls work less than anybody else, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you're being a little all lives matter right now.
And I mean, it's funny when you were bringing up about Prada and so on, I was thinking about even with Dolce & Gabbana, where they did that campaign again with the chopsticks and everything about eating fashion, and they shut it down. So that's another thing. Like we don't really, it almost becomes like a marketing ploy where they do these different things to anger the Black community. We all leave, and then they do all this great stuff, and then we all come back type of thing. Or rappers and singers and different people are always still showing them love. We're not being consistent with it.
Let me say to you what I said to the Asian model. You are from China. China has its own actual market. So if you wanted to go back and work in China, you have the capacity to go back and work in China and be the power base, be the main person. So if a Black model went to China, she would still be a Black model. She wouldn't be used as much as her Chinese, her Japanese, her Korean, whatever market she wanted to work in Asia. Black people, Black Americans, this is our market. This is our country. We should be used as much as you use a white model or a white American model. Full stop. Period. And I'm not saying go back to Africa, because Africa is its own market, and there's African girls that work in Africa, and Black girls go to Africa and they make their money in Africa, and they come back and they strengthen their book in Africa. They go to get tears. I almost went to South Africa when I was working. Instead, I went to Milan. So yes, we could go to Africa and work there, but we're not African. We're American. Full stop. So this is our market, and we want equity. We want equality in the market where our money is spent. This is our homeland. So that's the conversation I had with the Asian girl, and she got real salty. I've been having conversations with people lately, and they've been real salty with me about things, and it's not my intention. I just lost a really good friend because I had said something about looting. And we went back and forth about it. And it was one of those conversations where it was like, this isn't going to end well. And unfortunately, I think I haven't talked to her since. I just pulled the Issa and Molly thing on her, though, because I needed to talk to her. I needed to talk to her husband about something.
Oh, no.
And so I did want to go directly to her because I didn't want to, so I was trying to figure out how to go around her. And since I know her husband, I went to her husband directly. But the whole time I was doing it, I was like, you acting real Issa right now.
Hey, actually, what is it? Art imitates real life, or real life imitates art. It happens. But wait, I'm curious, what is your thoughts about? Because I'm actually going to have on Hope Davenport tomorrow. She's the creator of Hope Trader, where it's a trading app for
high-end design.
High-end design. There's like 3 different tiers. So there's like Christian Dior, Louis Vuitton. That's like tier 1, and then like tier 3, which is the lowest of the tiers, is like still like Diane von Furstenberg. So it's
Right.
you're still like, it's still coins, right? But she started this campaign about blood fashion in the sense of don't try to profit off of the looting and selling your items on Poshmark and so on. So I'm curious, what is your thoughts about that since you brought it up? I know it's 7:05, so if you guys got to go. But I got Marcellas Reynolds and he hasn't left me yet. So
it's 4:00. It's 4:00 here in LA, so I've got nothing to do. The conversation I had with my friend was, I said, I am into the protest. I, however, am not into the looting, because the looting then changes the focus of the protest and the meaning of the protest. Now, I get why people would loot and why we would fight the power, get into the vandalism and that kind of thing. But unfortunately, this time it's being co-opted by the alt-right. It's being co-opted by other factions that don't care about our message. They just care about anarchy. They care about basically making us look bad. So she was like, well, it's easy for you to say because you're not out protesting. And I was like, let me snatch you and tell you this.
Right.
I have protested so many times in the past, not just because I'm a Black man, but also because I'm a gay man.
Yeah.
So I've marched miles, honey. And I've raised my fist and my voice, and I've been an advocate for Black people. I've been very vocal on sets, behind the scenes, and very vocal in front of the camera.
I mean, you're the creator.
And I wrote a whole ass book that cost me tens of thousands of dollars celebrating Black skin and the successes of Black women and the successes of people in fashion of all races. So then there was the conversation about, well, these companies are insured, and then it got very personal to me because I felt like my Blackness was being challenged. Something that I don't talk about very often is that my niece was in the car with Philando Castile when he got shot. So the little girl who's calming the woman down that's in the car is my niece's daughter. And so that opens up a whole different area for me because of my homosexuality, I'm estranged from a certain part of my family. So when my mother told me what happened and was like, you're going to see it, I want to tell you before, it gets out, I wanted to reach out to her. But because I don't speak to my brother, talk about Issa and Molly, because I don't speak to my brother and we don't get along because of his views on my sexuality, I didn't feel like I could actually reach out to her because I've never met her. I've never met that side of my family because my brother and I don't get along, because of intrinsically who I am. And so part of that whole Blackness conversation about looting became very personal to me because I was also like, there's isms within the Black community, how they deal with gay people,
Right. Yeah. Billy Porter just spoke out about that.
Right. Yeah. Billy Porter just laid it out there. How much am I supposed to be out there fighting with you, which is also for myself, but then turning to you and knowing that you're not going to fight for me? Then we got into this conversation about we're in a pandemic. Another thing I don't talk about that often is I have high blood pressure and I have a kidney thing. So I'm in that thing in that area where I can't be out in the street without a mask. So when you talk about somebody that's been social distancing, I've been social distancing. You know what I mean? Because my life is at stake. So for someone that was like supposed to be my friend, that was like questioning my Blackness because I wasn't out protesting. And the other messed up thing about it was the day that the whole thing went down in West Hollywood, I was actually getting dressed to go. Eugenia Washington from America's Next Top Model was going, and she's a friend of mine and we live in the same neighborhood. And I was like, girl, I'm gonna come meet you because I wanted to meet Kendrick also, who Kendrick Sampson, who's like this amazing brother that's out there on the forefront of like just if you don't know him, look at him. He's on Insecure. He's an actor, but he's more of an
no.
activist than
He's the one that got hit with the rubber bullets.
he got beat
He's
up.
like the new Jesse Williams or the other,
Exactly.
light skin, green eyes.
Yes. Somebody
Sorry.
was trying to
It's the heat. I'm kidding.
yeah, somebody was trying to like to diss him and say, "Oh, he's Jesse Williams light," and I was like, "Bitch, really?"
He is not the poor man's Jesse Williams.
Poor man's Jesse, because both of them are fine as hell.
Hello.
Anyway,
And they're advocates, and
they're advocates, and they're out there doing the work. And so I was actually getting ready to get dressed and go and meet Eugenia and go and go protest. But then all of a sudden, all the text messages and my Citizen alert on my phone, which is an app called Citizen, where they tell you what's happening in your neighborhood, Citizen started going off. And I was like, I'm not leaving the house if they're like, burning shit at the Grove. I'm not leaving the house. So it was like this crazy conversation. It's like we're all talking about the same thing and we're all like protesting in the same way. You know what my mother said to me, which was really wise, is she was like, baby, if you're a Black person, you're protesting by just being.
Yeah.
Every time as a Black person you turn up in a space that is not Black, you're protesting. Because you're literally in the face of the power base telling them, showing them who you are. Because our skin is politicized. And when my mother said that, I was like, wow, Mom, you're deep.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I have to agree. I saw something that kind of gave me, because my daughter has a kidney issue, so I just feel like there's no way I could go out and risk bringing something home that could, same situation, like it's not happening. Right. And I'm like, I'll do my protest from social media in that sense. But at the same token, there was a meme I saw where having Black joy or raising kids with Black joy, that's an act of protest. Like there's different levels, just being happy and being able to do like obviously what you're doing.
Did something like that. They the hashtag became Black Men Smiling.
Yes.
And it was like, yes. And there's another one where it's like Black women posting pictures of them in their real lives and just being Black. And, unfortunately, our skin is politicized and it does change the timbre of the room every time we walk into the room. It adds something different. It adds something new. It becomes a point of conversation. And as a person that's been the point of conversation for so many years, even as a model, when like a makeup artist would be like, oh, I don't have anything, I don't have a product for you. And I would have to open my own bag and be like, see, I knew this, I got this. I bought my own concealer, I bought my own brush, I bought my own powder, I bought my own liquid foundation. I got that NW45 from MAC, don't step back, I got this, like that kind of thing. We're having these conversations, you know what I mean? I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to fix what's broken with my friend because I really do like her and we're there, you know what I mean?
And there's a lady, Kimberly Jones, who's a screenwriter and producer, and there's a video of her going viral where she's talking about the game of Monopoly, where it's 400 years and all of that. And she makes a point of saying that it's a lot of, I'm saying uppity, but I think she said upper class Black people who are coming out against the looting. And I think I don't necessarily come out against the looting because I don't think it's predominantly Black people who are doing it. They're just following or, like they're like, oh, well, while it's open, don't look a gifted horse in the mouth type of thing. But at the same token, that I do realize there is a privilege that I have at being already in my 40s that I've already gotten to the place where they're kind of trying to get as far as like I own my own home, I have a family, and these are the younger generation who's fighting because they don't have a job, their education stuck, their medical care stuck. Like they have a lot more on the state, and there's a lot more that they've been stuck home, and just all of that energy is like a champagne bottle almost, where
big storm of hellacious
frustration.
You know what I mean? We're in a pandemic. Nobody's working. Nobody has money. 40 million people unemployed. We've got a racist in the White House that every day tweets
fueling the fire,
incendiary comments. Everybody's at their wits' end. So of course we're out there. We're looking for like that outlet, and the outlet is anger. So just because you say I don't like looting, or I wish we weren't looting, or I wish we weren't there, does not mean you don't understand that the protest, does not understand you're not part of the bigger meaning for the protest. You know, in the conversation I had with my former friend, I said maybe I'm more Martin Luther King than I am Malcolm X. Then I said, but then, however, I said one of my personal heroes is not a person, is a entity. The Black Panther Party, you know, here in California in the late 60s, early 70s. If you educate yourself on what they were really about, you know, it was like about breakfast programs, and it was about
before school and after school programs. It's because of the Black Panther.
And raising us up and policing the police. And that was the one time in history where Black people were like walking around with guns. And what happens when we walk around in guns? They pass a literal law saying that Black people can't walk around with guns, but there are white people walking around in every state of the union with guns with complete impunity.
So I live near Raleigh, where there was a picture of a guy who had a grenade shooter, or I don't know weapons, but he had grenade launcher. Sorry, he had a grenade launcher about getting haircuts. You know what I mean? It's like, and there wasn't any armed forces or like there. I mean, granted, there might have been a war if they did, maybe, I don't know, but it was just like there wasn't that same.
They're armed, running up into the faces of police officers, yelling at them.
They ran towards the governor's house and broke like a lock on his gate. Apparently.
Right? Calling police officers everything but a child of God, and they get away with it. We can't even get within 6 feet of them without rubber bullets to protest.
And they're like this big rubber bullets. Like I didn't know that either. I thought they were like BB rubber bullets. I'm like, why are people losing eyes over this? It's arresting Black press at these stuff.
It's such a crazy moment. And then
there's
a side of me that is like, let's go burn some shit down, because this has to change. We can't have gone through the same moment in 1968 with the same thing. We can't have gone through the same moment.
What are you talking about? 1968? What's his name?
Rodney King.
We all get it on. Yeah, I'm like 1990s. Yeah.
You know, we can't keep going through this every 30 years or so. We need to address this, and it needs to change immediately. And it is by any means necessary, you know, because we can't be having this conversation 30 years from now. I mean,
I think the youth won't do it. Just like the same literary agent you have, they see it now. I think a lot of people were raised by people our generation who were MTV fans, or we can all get along type of fans, and saw that and grew up believing that we can all be the Benetton ads maybe, and hopeful that their kids are raised in a way that they just can't take it. Just like I think with our generation, each generation, they get stronger and have a different amount they're willing to put up with. Because I noticed like sometimes with my mom, even because racial discrimination was so obvious, like she was stabbed in school by one of her white classmates just for being in the classroom with her, because they segregated the school.
Wow.
And he didn't get reprimanded. They're in the school picture all together. And like just thinking all the different things she went through. So for her, it's like a different level. It has to be for her to notice it sometimes. She's very much like very friendly. And then, you know, like she has that cover, but she always was speaking to me about stand up for yourself. Don't let them do this. So the first time somebody called me the N-word, I fought them. Like, I thought that's what I'm supposed to do. You know, like there was no de-escalating it. So that's why I'm like, you know, each generation, your parents are raising you to be stronger and not to put up with things. And I think on that same token, people are they're willing to take this fight to the next, because they know it's better on the other side, because they've seen it. They grew up kind of more integrated. And so I'm very hopeful that all of this will not be for nothing. But thanks for sharing those stories about Fidel Castro, because that's one of the few videos that my husband and I, we saw together, and we both were very emotional over it, because it was so heart-wrenching, because he was doing everything the right way. And we've had this debate where he's always like about getting a gun, not getting a gun. I'm like, it's different if I have it. You know, like it's a different twist now. Like now it's a risk. as opposed to if it's in just your name,
Right.
and everything, like, it's easier.
Right.
I was just like, I just don't want that extra layer of fear because now they think I'm a threat because I have my weapon with me, as opposed to maybe they'll give me the benefit of the doubt without it, type of thing. But
So it's so crazy.
it is.
It's such a crazy time. I mean, there's the politics. I mean, and you know what? You carry your own sort of prejudices with things too. So Abrams, the cover of the book became a very big thing. That wasn't a non. That was a non thing. But the model on the cover is Janelle Williams. She's from Jamaica, dark skin, very short hair.
Just amazing.
So the way that the cover got picked, the way that the cover got chosen was Abrams said, send us 10 photos from the book that you think could be on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was like a very personal thing because the cover is the first thing you see, and you want somebody to like look at the book, not even know what the book is about, but be drawn to it and want to pick it up and buy it no matter what.
Right.
So I'm looking through the book and I'm looking at pictures of Naomi, and I submitted a couple pictures of Naomi. I submitted a couple pictures of Leah Kabede. There's a wonderful picture from Allure of 3 Black models together. That I thought would be the cover. Like, I actually thought that this photo would be the cover.
Oh, yes.
With Delone, Amito, and Iman Hammam. And so I liked it because it's what the book is about. It's a Afro-Latina, it's a half Egyptian, half Swedish girl, African girl, and it's about the diversity of color and skin tones and hair textures and even sexualities. And so I thought that would be the photo that made the cover. But I was also picking photos of like sort of lighter skinned Black models because I was like, that's going to be more approachable if it's not a Black person that's buying the magazine, that's buying the book. Mm-hmm. And so I came up with 9 photos. And I had to send 10 because they asked for 10, and that's just who I am. You asked me for something, I'm going to deliver. And I kept coming back to this Janelle Williams photo because it's one of my favorite fashion photos in the book because it's just so stunning. To me, it looks like a painting. It looks like a work of art. It looks like Eric Tate in the 20s. And so the last photo I sent, I was like, let me just put it in there. And I thought they would never pick that photo. And then the way that it happens is that like the entire team at Abrams talks about the title. They talk about the cover. They talk about this. They talk about that. The author has no input whatsoever on that past sending you the 10 photos that I like. Mm. Girl, when they sent it back to me, they sent this back as the cover. So it had the writing on it and everything. And as you can see, I cried earlier. I burst into tears and cried so hard because I was like, not only am I doing a book about Black models, but there's actually going to be a dark-skinned woman on the cover.
With zero Eurocentro.
Nothing Eurocentric about it.
Big lips, big eyes, just everything us. No European hair, the whole thing.
The whole thing. And I was like, it was such a moment because I was like, oh my God. And it's a moment that keeps happening. You know, I have a girl that I grew up with. And I consider her a sister, even though we're not blood related, but she knows my mama and calls her mom. I know her mama and father. I call her mom. I call him Pops. And we grew up together sort of as siblings. I would stay at her house when things got rough at my house, you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah. And we went to grammar school and then high school together. And I spent Christmases with them and the whole 9 yards. And their father calls me baby boy. And I know her aunts and uncles, like we're family, but she's not my family. But we grew up with each other from like the time we were 9. And she saw the cover of the book and we were together after a book event in Chicago during my book tour. And we're kind of recounting the night, you know what I mean? Oh, that was amazing. Oh, Veronica Webb is so beautiful, blah, 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 you know, because Veronica was at the book signing with me. And then afterwards, we met a bunch of friends from high school that we went to high school with. And that was like amazing, you know, talking about the book with them. And all of them bought copies of the book with them to the party, hoping that I would come, that kind of thing. And so we're just recounting the night afterwards. And she gets very serious, and she's like, I have to tell you something that I can't believe you put a dark-skinned woman on the cover of the book. And I was like, why? It's like one of my favorite photos in the book. Don't you like it? And she was like, well, growing up, I never thought that you thought I was pretty because I had dark skin and natural hair. And all the girls that you dated were sort of like light skinned. And I was like shocked.
Yeah.
And she was like, but by you putting a woman that looks like me on the cover, it just reclaimed all of this hurt from high school and grammar school about how I thought you viewed me. And I was like, I never for a second thought you were anything but beautiful because I know your heart. You know, she's one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. But then again, she's my sister. So I'm not turning to her and being like, girl, you're so pretty.
It's like, and the gag is I'm gay anyway. They were just dumb enough to cover for me. No, I'm kidding.
So weird. It catches us all, you know, it catches us all, you know, it affects us all. People are like, why is this such a big thing with this Black thing in this moment? It's like, if you don't grow up with it, if you don't grow up Black, you could never understand it. From the time you can think, you're told you're less than. From the time, if you're a Black man, from the first time you leave the house, you're told that you're in danger. This is how you're supposed to behave if you interact, not just with police people, not just with policemen, but with white people. That conversation that Black parents have with their children doesn't just end with policemen. It ends, it's the whole race. We are told that we are in jeopardy by a whole race simply because of who we are.
But there's history behind it too, with like Rosewood and Emmett Till, where you know,
and so.
And countless other Black men who've been accused of crimes they didn't do against white women, or in general, just like, my dad caught me with a Black guy. I got to lie and say it was something else. Then, so no, I get it. Totally good. Because I remember a girlfriend of mine in high school, she had a shoplifting habit, for lack of a better word. And she was white, and I didn't know she had a I didn't know. And plus, like, I was like, you can't do that with me. Like, I'll be the one that'll be arrested. It's like, oh, no, I'll tell him. And I'm like, okay, you'll tell. Like, I was always like, oh my God. So I would always like be paying extra and be like very obvious to try and not like, it's not me. Like, I just felt that extra pressure. And I'm sure some of it was just from being around her and just seeing how quickly she could just steal and nobody was following her around. Nobody was looking. And just me being like, how in the world? And I remember, being with a friend who was Black who did the same thing. I was like, okay, I'm not doing this with you, because
this isn't my.
They're not going to tell us apart. We're all going to jail together.
You know, my first job was in retail, and I was a salesperson, and it was like you have to, you know, you sort of like have to police everybody that comes into the store. And so, having been a Black person and gone into stores, I know what it's like the moment you walk in. There's like a keyword that they say, or there's a look.
Can I help you?
And then everybody is like on you, like white on rice, so that you don't steal something. And then I remember being in retail, and 9 times out of 10, when we caught a shoplifter, it was like the little white girl that went to Latin or went to like one of these like good schools in Chicago, who came in and was working her agenda because she wasn't being watched. And it was literally like when the sensor went off, it was like, okay, let's check the bag. And it was like, you weren't watching her. You were watching that sister over there who just put something, who just, dropped $2,000 or $2,500 and is walking out of the store, the best seller of the day, instead of watching everybody equally. You know what I mean? So it,
they watched Oprah, or you remember?
I remember that Oprah story.
Everybody knows Oprah. How does that happen? Yeah.
It would happen. It still happens to me to this day. I'm a celebrity fashion stylist. I've got this crazy pedigree. As you said, I'm on television a lot. And I will walk into a store in Beverly Hills and I'll see because I worked in retail. I've been living while Black for damn near for 50 years. I know what it is. So I see it and I'm like, you know what? Business still has to get done. So I'm gonna keep going. But it's a microaggression that's meant to always check you so that no matter what, that you're Black. You know what I mean? Someone is always reminding us of our color negatively. And it's frustrating. So there is a side of me that's like, burn the whole thing down.
Start all over. My ancestors built this country for free.
Where do we live?
But then it's like,
so crazy.
They're really pretty close in there. Yeah. It's definitely being Black right now. It's one of those things where I'm proud of people that they're speaking out. And I love the fact that when I see the visuals, it looks like everyone's out there, like all different ages and races. Like everyone is at the point where like, okay, this conversation is done. Let's move forward. And I'm looking forward to that, like transpiring into all different businesses, whether it's the mortgage company, so we can get fair housing, or education, so we can get the quality education to lead to the jobs that lead to being decision makers and so on. Because it's that analogy about the Monopoly game, like, was just so clear. Because being an only child, my parents played the version that hurried up and got done quick. So I never played by the rules. And so like my husband, he's like, oh, what? You can't do that. I'm like, whoa, there's rules to that? Like, I'd never heard of these rules before. My parents were just trying to hurry up and get out of this game. And we always ended happily.
We played the version where there was like $200 under the free space. So you got the $200 when you passed go, but you also got $200 if you landed on free. I'm like, what version of Monopoly was
completely different version. So when she said that analogy, I can relate. It's so many years of this and so many stories. We all have a relative that we know that is either been a victim of gun violence or been a victim some other way of the pipeline of being like wrongfully accused, or like we all have that story where we're just sick of it, or we've all experienced it in the sense of like we pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps. We went to college, we did this, and we're still dealing with this. Like it doesn't matter.
I was saying to, because I have had 3 crazy conversations with 3 Black people about the looting thing. And I've been stopped by the police 8 times. And I can tell you almost to the address where it happened. I can tell you the street where it happened. I just didn't look up to see the address that I was standing in front of, but I could tell you the street. And I could describe each one of those interactions. And I could describe 2 that definitely left me damaged for the rest of my life. And I've had a police officer go to his waist because I was talking back. And and I do think that the thing that actually saved me maybe was that it was broad daylight. And I do think the thing that maybe saved me was maybe, you know what? I don't know what saved me, because that police officer in Santa Monica could have pulled his gun and shot me on the street. Granted, I was a good 10 feet away from him. I wasn't a threat to him, but he was so angry because I had the nerve to talk back that in his anger, he literally did this. And I was like, you're going to shoot me? Like I literally screamed, you're going to shoot me. That's where it had escalated to because I spoke back. And I remember that day I went back home and I told my mother about it. And my mother was angry. And she wasn't angry that that happened to me. She was angry that I actually had the nerve to stand there and go toe to toe and best verbally this policeman. Because she was like, your faux fame, your uh, your money doesn't inoculate you from racism, and it's certainly not gonna, that bullet that gets shot in your head is not going to bounce off of you because you think you this or that or whatever. And she was like, don't ever do that again. She was like, the same rules apply that when I told you that when you were 8 years old, they still apply now. Keep your hands up. Speak with respect. Answer when spoken to. Complete sentences. Moderate your voice. Don't raise your voice. Don't show that you're upset. Do all of that when you get home to me. Give them my information. Get out of it and get back home to me. And that's what little Black kids are told every single day of their lives. Respect the police. Don't do this. Don't do that. Put your hands up. Have you seen that video of the little Black girl that's 8 years old and her father is like, what do we say if the police stop us? My hands are up. I do not have anything. I'm so-and-so, so-and-so. I'm 8 years old. My hands are up. I don't have anything on me that will hurt you. She's 8.
It's just heartbreaking to think about it. I mean, I think being that I grew up, so like the first half of my life, I was an Air Force brat. We were in Europe, Turkey, Germany, Holland, and my father, he was chief of police. So I was very insulated in that sense. Like I didn't have to worry about the police, but at the same time, I saw firsthand some of his officers beat their wives. You know, like the first violence I saw was a friend of my mom's getting punched in the face, and it was just like, that's the police. Then who do you call if it's, you know, if it's the police doing the violence? Like, and that was always, to this day, I still remember that very vividly because I've never seen anything like that in real life since. But it was just one of those things where I was just like, and there was other stories I overheard as a kid where different policemen had killed their wives or did this other stuff. And I was like, I always heard things that made me nervous. And because I was abused by my second grade teacher, she physically abused me. And so I just never really trusted authority. Like I always kind of clam up around authority figures because I know they have the power to lie and get away with it. Or, you know, like who do you call above them? Type of thing, and they'll cover for each other in that sense too, because even in that scenario, the policeman told me when they found out about the whole child abuse and everything, they told me to pretend it never happened type of thing. There wasn't any justice with it. And so it was one of those things that I just learned at a very young age, that when it comes to stuff like that, you're not going to be seen as the victim. You're going to be seen as, you must have did something, you're the aggressor, or, well, they have a very stressful job, so what do you expect? And type of things you would hear. And just, so when it comes to the police, I don't play around. I just learned today that you're supposed to, I'm turning on the overhead, or you should turn on the overhead light before they come over so they can see you. And I never even thought of that. But
no one thought of that.
These conversations.
There's the thing now where you can speak to Siri and you say, you go, hey Siri, I'm being stopped by the police. And then, well, I'm surprised it didn't go off. But hey, I don't think I have it set on my phone. Yeah. But supposedly you're supposed to be able to say, hey Siri, I'm being stopped by the police, and the phone will actually discreetly start to record video and audio, and it will send it not just to your friends who you assign it to. It will call your friends to let them know that this is happening, but then it'll go to your iCloud. So if they take your phone, somebody will be able to access it. So how crazy is that we now have an app for when the police stop us?
Like I knew ACLU had made an app like that, but I didn't realize it was something so needed that it's integrated into the iPhone as an option.
Girl, should we be taking questions?
Okay. Yeah.
We
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
go deep and
Sorry, definitely did. Citizen app, people love it. Here's
love
the
the
last
Citizen
one.
app.
Marcella, what's your opinion on the pull up, the change quantifying Black people both as Black people and Black, Indigenous, and people of color, the BIPOC? Does this help or hurt our percentages with the fashion ratios? It's a great question.
Oh, that's a great question. It's that conversation I had with the Asian model. It's like for people that aren't Black but aren't white, the conversation about race is always about Black people and white people as though they don't exist. So Native Americans don't exist, Latinos don't exist, and Black people are the only other that exists. But what I say to people of color is they think of us all as the same thing. When white people are talking about Black people, they're talking about everybody that's not white. So this fight may seem like it's Black Lives Matter, but it's actually all lives matter that don't happen to be white.
Right.
We need to turn our attention to everybody in the other section. So even though, and that was the other thing. The other day, somebody, a friend of mine that was like Thai, reached out to me. And Thai people can be as dark as Black people. Black people can be every shade. We can pass. We can be alabaster to onyx. So, but when they reached out to me, they had done what white people have been doing to me, where they're like, "We're checking on you. Are you all right? We just want to make sure everything's okay." So when the Thai person checked on me, I was like, "We fighting for you too." They were like, "Oh well, he's Asian. Don't shoot him." Like,
yeah, no, I totally agree with that sentiment in this sense. Like once we're good, we can work for everyone else. Kind of.
But I almost feel like it's the trickle down theory. Once white privilege ends, it's not just going to end against Black people. It's going to end for everybody that's other. It's going to end for the Asian. It's going to end for the Indigenous American. It's going to end for the Latin person. So even though Black people are on the forefront of this battle, we're battling for all the others. We're battling for trans people. We're battling for gay people. We're battling for the LGBTQI community. It's the other, and it's just the face of it is the Black American. But we're battling for the rights of the other. We're battling for this needs to end. White privilege, racism, white supremacy across the board needs to end. It's not just going to end because it affects us. We want it to end across the board. We want equality for everyone who happens to be oppressed. So that's what I say with that. Now, within fashion, it's kind of hard because there's only so many, because of racism, because of the business, you feel like there's only so many slots for ethnic girls. So you want to stick the Black girl in that spot. And then then the Black girl looks at the Asian girl and she's like, she's a threat because there's only so many spaces for other.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or the Latin girl is a threat because there's only so many spaces for other. Or
the racially ambiguous,
yes,
passing white girls sometimes are taking the jobs too.
You know what I mean? Like, the Persian girl that looks like Kim Kardashian or Kylie or who's white but made herself into look like an ethnic girl.
I'm like, wait, both of her parents are white. How does she look like Kim Kardashian too?
She's like a white girl with thin lips, and the next thing you know, she looks like Kim Kardashian. She looks
I'm like, you're a Jenner, though. You're not a Kardashian. You're not Lebanese. What just happened here? I get it. You're raised around everyone else looking and getting all the attention. You want to look like them as well, but
I think she monetized that, and that's one of the things we're talking. When we're talking about appropriation, that's troubling. I'm just going to leave that there, but that's troubling. When you don't want to include us, but you want to look like us. You know what I mean?
I know. I had braids and was told once they're out, then you can work. And I did one job while I had braids, but that was it.
Yeah. I have a friend who was a model who had braids on the cover of her book. but on the cover of her comp. But then if you look at the back of her comp, she had, because she's biracial, so she had all kinds of, her hair was afroed out in one thing, it was straight in one thing, because you could do whatever. And the client looked at it and couldn't get past the braids. Couldn't get past, well, we don't want braids in our ad, or we don't want, and she's like, well, you can do everything with my hair in the same way that you could do it with a white person. It was so crazy that we're dealing with this stuff in the 20s, in the 2000 periods. You know what I mean? That it's like we're still having these crazy conversations. You can only deal with what you see. You know what I mean? So crazy. So I hope I answered.
Speaking of hair, there's one more. Marcellas Reynolds, damn it. As a hairstylist, I totally agree with you. I'm almost over when you spoke that truth, made it my business to be diverse in my craft. As a hairstylist or makeup artist, I believe it is important to show a range of diversity in all skin and hair. Amen, Antoinette. So she was just co-signing. I didn't know if there was a question mark in there, so I just kept reading just in case. Yeah.
I mean, it's necessary. It's necessary. There needs to just be more of us, because there's money there. You know what I mean? I have some Black hair and makeup. Now we're at this point with, especially with Black culture, where Black actresses want to work with Black hair. They request us. That hasn't trickled down to fashion yet, where Black models have the power to, maybe, unless you're Naomi, have the power to request a Black hair and makeup artist. But I'm hoping that we get there. But I'm also hoping that the other side of that is that they're already there and we don't have to request them. I'm not saying that there has to be all Black hair and makeup artists, but I'm also saying that I shouldn't, as a stylist, walk into a room and I'm the only Black person in the building. I'm the only Black stylist in the building. I'm the only,
learn our hair.
You know, and there's only one Black hair and makeup artist in the building. You know, that's. And then there's a side of me that maybe doesn't want there to be more than one, because, you know, that's that slave mentality. There can only, for so many millennia, Black people have been told through your actions and through your words that there can only be one. There's only space for one. You know, when you have, speaking of fashion, you had that conversation about Naomi and Tyra, it's like, during the 90s, during the late 80s and early 90s, there were supermodels of every race, but there could only be one Black person. They weren't comparing Cindy Crawford to Claudia Schiffer.
No, they were all working together. It was like the top fours. They were all together. Linda Evangelista, Cindy Crawford, Christy Turlington,
Claudia Schiffer. They weren't comparing Christy and Linda. There was always a place for both of them, but there could only be one. It was always Naomi against Tyra, Naomi against Karen, Naomi against Beverly Peele. But here's the thing that I learned when I was writing this book and doing these interviews with these incredible women. That was a narrative that was put out by the press and by agents and was perpetuated by people that weren't Black to pit us against each other. Because all the models that I asked about Naomi Campbell that knew her and worked with her had nothing but good things to say about her from start to finish. And I did over 40 interviews for this book. There's only 70 models in the book. I did 40 interviews. Not all of those models made it into the book. But one of the questions that I asked each model was, who was your favorite model? And out of all of those questions, out of all of those answers, every Black model said Naomi Campbell, and there was like a little bit of Iman. And then a couple might have said Alec Weck. But if you knew Naomi, not only did they take the time to say, oh, Naomi Campbell, but if they knew her or had worked with her, it followed with the story about her. And the stories were all positive.
I believe that.
So that whole like diva thing and blah, blah, blah.
The phone, yeah.
Well, yeah, she probably, you know, those are facts. She threw the phone, she did whatever. But as far as her trying to chase another model out of the business, from the conversations I had with people who were also there, that's a lie. That was John Casablancas trying to control Naomi. And that was a bunch of other people in power, designers, fashion stylists and agents trying to control Naomi, trying to tell her that she couldn't make as much money as Linda and Christy and other models of other models that were white, because she was the one that was kicking that door open and creating opportunities not just for herself, but when she opened that door, all these other Black models came through, and people had to use other Black models. And those other Black models were like, I want the same money that so-and-so is making standing on this set as she's making. Just because she's white, she doesn't deserve more money than me. We're doing the same job. We're wearing the same clothes. I want that same money. And so that business person had to figure out a way to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I think that's why they don't want you to really share how much you're getting paid either, because they don't want you to find out you're not getting paid as much as the other models on set and stuff.
When I was a model, that happened to me once, because back then you had vouchers.
Right.
You know, and so all the models would get together and they'd be like, okay, let's get our voucher out. Who signs my voucher? Mm-hmm. And I remember being on set for a catalog, and I worked that full day, and I was on set with a couple of white guys and a couple of girls, and somebody was like, let me borrow your pen. Because I always bought my model bag, and I had pens, and I had my vouchers, and I had my powder, and I had shoes, and I had like whatever you might need that kept me at that booking, that kept my money right. I had it. It was like, let's make a deal in a Black boy.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're like a Boy Scout, always prepared.
Always prepared. So I went in there to get my money. You weren't sending me home. Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't have a pair of dark jeans that fit me? I so happen to have a pair of dark jeans that fit me. Let me see what's in the bag. Yeah. But I loaned a white boy my pen, and I was sitting there as he was filling out his voucher, and his voucher was $750 more than my voucher. And I remember calling my agent and saying and thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm incorrect. You know, maybe I wrote down my amount, in my book. And I called my agent and I was like, so-and-so is making, this is the amount they're making. Mm-hmm. And girl, the guy was with my agency. And my booker was like, I know. And he was like, but that was the rate that they quoted for you. And this was the rate that they quoted for him. And this guy was not a star. My CV was better than his CV. I had been working for a while. This kid was new. And they were paying him for that $1,250 day that I got. He was making $2,000. Same work. In fact, I had more shots than anybody that day, because I was in every shot that the white people was in. And then I had my own shots with me by myself.
Yeah.
You're working a brother.
Yeah. You're like, and I'm getting paid less, and I'm doing twice the work. Oh, wow. So did your agent, was there a conversation with your agent from here on out, like, make sure I get the same rate, or you're just like, well, okay, I'm glad you told me, thanks. I want to keep working.
He literally said it. He was like, both of us were with his agency. The client called and said what they were paying for that guy and what they were paying for him, what they were paying for me. And that was that. Now, within that space, I figured out ways to reclaim my power from that moment, because the next time that client tried to book me, I told my agent that I wouldn't work for that amount anymore, because I knew what they were willing to pay other people.
Right.
And because they knew my strengths as a model, they ended up paying that rate. And from that moment on, I was always very conscious of my rate. I used that as a starting place, a negotiation. So you came to me and you were like, this is a $2,000 day. I would go back and I would be like, ask for $2,250.
Okay.
And then my agent was like, oh no, we had this conversation. I already got, he would be like, Marcellas, I got you more money. He would be like, I already had that conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
What's crazy about those conversations even back then is I had a friend who was a model who had, dark skin like me, but had quote unquote good hair. Mm-hmm. And so she didn't have a weave. So on her card, she had curly hair sometimes, and she had straight hair on the back, or whatever. So this model, and I'm not gonna name her, but this girl was when you're Black, you have to figure out ways to get yours. And so she would be like, if the client called and said, I want her hair straight, she would charge more money because she would be like, well, she has to go straighten her hair. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She would be sitting next to me on the phone with straight hair. But like, girl, they want you with your hair straight. And she'd be like, well, you got to charge $200 more because I've got to go get my hair straightened last minute.
Yeah.
And I would be like, your hair is like literally straight right now. And then if they were like, oh, we want her hair curly, because the truth of the matter is, so often Black models have to, and it continues to this day, go to set with their hair done because they can't chance that the hair and makeup artist will know how to do their hair.
Man, and then they want to put hairspray on it for days.
Hairspray on it. They want to wet it. They want to put a curling iron on it with the heat up high. They want to do this, that, and everything else. You can't experiment on this shit.
No,
it's
like a cashmere sweater over here.
Right?
Very gentle cycle. No, this is not experiment time. That's what you went to cosmetology school for,
right.
Not my hair. Yeah, no, the reason I had the braids is because,
it's so crazy. It's so troubling.
It is. Oh my gosh, it's almost 8:00.
Okay. Do you
I absolutely love you.
I love you too.
And I'm so grateful that you spent all this time with me. I could talk to you all day because I'm still like, I didn't get any dirt on Naomi. Not dirt. I don't want anything dirty, but I just hearing stories about working with her. But you told me that you didn't you didn't work with her until you did your book, but just wanted to know what it was like living in your world and doing red carpet and Joan Rivers. Like, there's so many questions I still have for you. So we'll just have to do it again. Whenever you're on your book tour, because I now have to get you my book autograph, because I've been following you for a while. When I first heard about the book is when I started following you on Instagram, at least. And I was like, oh, wait, your book tour is like, where are you doing your book tour? Because that's where I'm going to buy my book from and pre-sell it so that I can make sure I can get it autographed. And this was better than getting it autographed, but I still want it autographed. Like getting 2 hours with you.
I was in book mode. I was in book tour mode when this happened. I was still about to start the second leg of it, and this sort of changed that. And I'm still getting calls to go out and do tours, and I'm not ready to go out yet. I'm not ready to start making appearances again, but I realize that I have to. And it's going to be interesting to see how this changes it. You know what I mean? Am I going to do a book tour or a book talk wearing a mask? You know what I mean? Like it's an interesting time, but
you're like plexiglass, like the Pope. Like, you can see me, but you can't touch me. Or you can be like the John Travolta ball guy. You remember that movie where he was in a ball?
Yes.
Yeah.
The point.
It was like a gerbil.
The point.
Yeah, that's it.
I love you. That was so good.
I was like, as a germphobe, I'm kind of like, I should have got that for a Halloween costume. I'm sure it's sold out now.
I'm a germaphobe, and this has been the hardest time ever for me. Like, literally, I'm out of quarters, and laundry day is so troubling for me anyway because it's a communal. It's like the laundry in the building. So I have to go down there.
I lost a Bill Blast shirt in the laundry in LA. I feel your pain. It's easy to forget how much you bring down, and you're sharing it with other people. And I had a Bill Blast vintage shirt, and
Oh, and they're stealing stuff out of my building, and I don't think it's like outside people. I think it's people in the building. So now it's like you have to wait when your Amazon delivery comes to you because you're like, okay, don't let it sit out there longer than 2 seconds. It's crazy.
I believe that. We had our apartment was broken into. We lived in Oakwood. You remember the apartment? It's like near Burbank, I think.
Yeah, I know Oakwood. Omarosa.
Yeah, it was the maids. Oh, I lived near Omarosa. I had no idea. Well, the maid service broke into our apartment, and stole all of our jewelry. Yep, it was an inside job. So not surprising. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, they will tear you up. Facts that everybody's agreeing. You may want to rent a washer and dryer for the apartment. Somebody said that.
No, I don't have that thing. I don't have like the internet. I don't have the setup. I don't have the thing for it, because I was thinking about it, and then I was thinking about moving and blah blah blah. But I love my building and I love my neighborhood because I'm by the Grove in LA, and so I love my spot. I've been here for 8 years, so I'm just gonna have to suck it up and keep doing laundry in the communal thing.
It's all about location.
With my bleach and my gloves and my mask.
Oh, well, I appreciate you taking all the time. Yeah, I appreciate you so much being my guest, and I can't thank you enough for agreeing to be on my show with me today. I can pretty much retire now, so thanks for that. I appreciate you so much. And whenever you're on your tour, just know the crazy lady, that will be me. I'll finally get my autograph.
Tell all your commenters to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, I posted it.
If you've got questions that didn't get answered, I'll answer them there. And let's do this again.
You got it. Absolutely. I would love to.
I can sit here and talk about anything, so we don't have to talk about the book, even though the book is beautiful.
And it goes with everything.
It goes with everything.
Wes is always in style. For sure. So if you're running out of content, there's a great book for you to look out, and definitely some movies. Mahogany and Battle of Versailles is on Amazon Prime.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again for being my guest, and I appreciate you. And you take care of yourself, stay well, and stay out of the protest.
All right. Bye, honey.
All right, bye. That was the coolest. Okay, that is officially the coolest interview ever. I cannot believe we went 2 hours. I appreciate you guys all staying with me and bearing with me. I'm not even going to waste any more of your time, because I feel like I have to take all this in that just happened, and I'm having a moment. So thank you for watching. I'm trying not to cry because I'm just that excited about that interview with him. He's an idol, and just this book is so amazing, and just hearing the story straight from the author is just an amazing opportunity. So again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you share. I'm doing a horrible job at getting down to 30 minutes now that I'm up to 2 hours. So thank you again for watching. Please share. Please like. Good night. I got nothing else. I appreciate you guys.